Hi, this is Coralla at CorallaFicklin.com, WelcomeNetwork.com. If you're looking at the second video, you've already heard on the first video all the different websites that we have in our network. So you can go to the first video and check that out, because I don't want to waste time. I shouldn't say waste time, but I don't want to use time going over what you can listen to in the first video in the head. So as I was saying on the first video, and I had to leave very quickly because time was running out, that if you note that on the research that I've done on that particular body part, the head, and looking at the etymology of the word and other words and other languages that are related to head, H-E-A-D, most of the words, all of the languages are Germanic languages. When you're talking about Dutch, and I'm looking at the etymology here because I have it all written down, and I go back to Old English, Saxon, Old High German, Old Norse, Old Icelandic, Middle English. What did the word look like in Middle English? Then Dutch, what does the word look like? What does head look like? It's German, Swedish, Norwegian, and even African. All right, and then I look at Latin, French, and Spanish, and you'll notice in Latin, French, and Spanish there's no relationship at all. But in Latin, interesting enough, in the word that everyone uses as head, there's no relationship. But if you go down, when I'm looking at the web page now, if you go down and you look at prefixes and or suffixes, which means head, okay, which mean head, now there's the Latin, the C-A-P-I-T. So in medical books, or depending on how you're using the word, words that uses the prefix of head, it's Latin, okay? And other words that we have which metaphorically means head. For example, one of the prefixes from Latin is C-A-P-T. Well, of course, C-A-P-T, captain. No? So we do, even in more or less everyday speech, we will use the Latin prefix, but many times indirectly. But if you go into medical books, because I looked at medical dictionaries, very interesting dictionaries, you'll see the use of the C-A-P-I-T and C-A-P-T and C-A-P-U-T. These are all prefixes, and they all mean head, okay? And so let me get back to the head and looking at the head. Now, metaphorically, the head has a lot of different meanings. Like informally, it means the one who's in charge, the boss. Who's the head man here? Who's the head here? That means who's the one I need to speak to? Who's the one that can make decisions? Okay, a more slang meaning boss, the head honcho, where the buck stops, the man. Like somebody says, well, the man, he's the one I need to speak to because you don't know anything. The chief, the one who calls the shots, kingpin, okay? I can't go into them all because there's a lot. I'm telling you, there's a lot of synonyms, especially slang synonyms. Then this is British English and informal, gaffer. I've never heard of it, but if it's in Oxford, I trust it. And it's G-A-F-F-E-R. Okay. Head is also used when you're talking about a number of cattle or other same type animals. For example, although my parents were poor, they were able to buy a couple head of buffalo. Okay. So head has a lot of different meanings. The head is also the top of a staircase. All right. Head. Now this has nothing to do with staircase or the leader, but listen to the sentence and see if you get it. This beer has quite a head on it. Now you pour beer into the glass, and the foam that comes up, and if you're a beer drinker, I think that foam means something, you know, whether beer's going to be good or not. I don't drink beer or whatever, and they call that the head. All right. Let me see. Okay. The origin, the rise, the wellspring, the mainspring, the origin of something, the head. Okay, let me give you something else. Okay. The upper part of the bed, of the grave, or the table. For example, if you sit at the head of the table, you are the one who's in charge. You are the recognized leader. And I remember when I was growing up, because when I was growing up, men were still in charge, and it was the father. And the father always sat at the head of the table, okay? Because he was the one who was the head of the family, okay? Head is also informal for your hair, okay? Also, you use head, and you use it when you're talking about a drug, and it's a head is the habitual user of drugs. For example, he's a pothead, he's an acid head, and you hear this a lot. He's a crackhead. That means someone who's an addict when it comes to crack. Once again, this is British England, this colloquial postage stamp. Okay. And that's a result of the sovereign's head. On the postage stamp, they have the sovereign, the king, or the queen's head. In this case, the queen. Okay. The headline in a newspaper, that's the first thing you see. For example, I can remember a headline, for example, 9/11, 3,000 people died. That's not the headline, but something to that effect. Okay. Now, you know what I like to do? I also have head when it comes to as an adjective, but there's about 5 or 6. But it's interesting that head is not only a noun in English, head is also a verb. Now, you know in English you can take a lot of words and you can change the word. It's a noun, but you can change it into a verb. I think there was the British used to insult the Americans. Yeah, I think the British used to insult the Americans. This is when the British and the Americans were enemies. And they said that Americans have never met a noun that they haven't made a verb out of. Because I think that habit of taking a noun and making it to a verb is is peculiar more to Americans than to other English speakers. Okay, but anyway, to head. Let me just give you a couple words for what it means, a verb. To go first, to go before, to go in advance. Alright, to head also means to lead, to direct, to govern. As he is the president of the company, he will head the meeting. If you head the meeting, you are the one who leads the meeting. Okay. To crown, to top off, to cap off. To outrank, to outweigh, to overbalance. That means if you're the head, you are the one. If you are heading the meeting or the group, you are the one in charge. Okay. The head also means to guide, the one who pulls the strings. Okay. Now, have you ever heard of the expression heads or tail? You throw up a coin and you go, and you say head, which is the front side of the coin, and the other side. So if someone says, okay, call it, and the person goes heads, the person goes head, or the other side of the coin, which is tail. Okay. Now I can start giving you expressions, but you know what? I'll wait till the next video, and I'll start giving you expressions on the head. I'm just going to deal with one body part. That's the head. Corella Ficklin, CorellaFicklin.com.